Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and I'm back with another Sunday Sew Along tutorial, continuing the week of summer tutorials. So today I'm going to be doing a full bust adjustment on a Dolman style front. This is actually, I'm using the Love Notions Vivace, sorry, the name was like, what is the name? Vivace top, which actually can be made in a knit or a woven. I'm working with the woven bodice here on this one. Now, technically this pattern doesn't need to do, I mean, maybe you might need to do a full bust adjustment, but this pattern does come with a full bust front, which usually means I don't have to do a full bust adjustment, but it's just one that I had in my stack that is a Dolman style that I can show you how to do a full bust adjustment. Now, this will work for both knits or for wovens and for knits. Obviously, I'll be creating a dart when I'm doing this one. The Vivace actually does not come with a dart. I'll be creating a dart, but I have a video and I'll pop a link up here. If you are working with knits and you don't want a dart, how to do a full bust adjustment, a dartless full bust adjustment. It's still the same principles because a lot of, not all, I guess two of the three of those methods, you actually make the dart and then you're getting rid of it. It would be the same for this. So if you wanted to get rid of the dart, you would do the same things for this one because you'll see how similar it is to a regular full bust adjustment when we get into things. I've also had a lot of questions with Dolmans about narrow shoulder adjustments and full bicep adjustments, and honestly, super easy. So with a Dolman, because there is no shoulder seam, you do not need to do a narrow shoulder adjustment. Now I'm going to have a caveat here, just a second. Bear with me. Because there's no shoulder seam, actually, oh, look at that. I'm wearing a Dolman style. This is the La Belladonna from Love Notions. I guess I could use this one. But anyway, since there's no shoulder seam that cuts across, it doesn't matter where your shoulder falls in that since there's no armscye seam, I guess, armhole seam, it doesn't matter where your shoulder point falls in the shoulder seam. It'll just, you know, kind of make a difference on if things are longer or shorter on your arm, really. But a lot of times I know that people might think, well, the neckline's too big. Like I need a narrow shoulder, my shoulders are narrow and the neckline's too big. That's actually an issue with you need a smaller size in the upper body. So my suggestion there would be to trace a smaller size in the neckline and in the shoulder, and then grade out to the size you need for everywhere else in the underarm area. Does that make sense? So smaller size up top, full, you know, whatever you need for down below. Yeah, and it's not as hard as it seems. Honestly, I'll talk you through it a little bit when you're actually seeing the actual pattern. The other thing with a full bicep adjustment, because there's no technical sleeve, really all you need to do is make the armhole wider, your armhole wider, which can be done in one of two ways. You can make your shoulder seam straighter, so it comes off straighter this way, and that will give you width above, you know, the arm. That then will help your arm will fill out. Or you can also drop the little curve there on the side, drop it a little bit and give yourself a little room below. That's it for a full bicep adjustment. If you just need a little bit more room in the arm, that's gonna do it for you. So I'll talk you through a little bit more of both of those on the actual pattern here in a minute, just so you can get a better visual as if I'm not explaining it well. But really, they're not hard. So I don't feel like I needed to do a separate video for those. I'll just kind of show you over on the pattern that I'm going to be working on. Okay, joking. Okay, if you enjoyed this type of content and it was helpful, which I really hope it was, I do have a tip jar, a virtual tip jar. It's a coffee account. All the money from that goes right back into the channel. It recently helped me pay for my new tripod that hopefully you guys are enjoying, especially with these overhead shots. It's just a little easier for me to use. It's very versatile. Love it. But yeah, that kind of thing, equipment, maintenance on the machinery, all that kind of stuff. It goes right back in for that kind of thing. So if you would like, there is that down below as well. Okay, I think that's all I have. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below. I'll be happy to answer those as soon as possible. I hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday, and I will see you guys again on Tuesday. Have a good one. Bye. Okay, let's talk about dolmans. I will show you how to do a full bust adjustment, and then we will talk a little bit more about the shoulders and the arm hole for those questions. Okay, so here I've got the Love Notions Vivace Dolman. Now, this is the woven front. This pattern, you can do wovens or knits. Also, it does not have a dart, and again, I mentioned if you did not want to do a dart, I have a video on how to omit that, but the beginning steps would be the same. Then you would take over, you can kind of piece that together with that video, because I do a full bust adjustment, I think, in 2 of those 3 ways. So all right, so the first thing we're going to do, you will note that on this pattern, hopefully you can see it, it's kind of mixed in with the wording here, but there is an apex marked right here, which is very helpful. That's my favorite, when the pattern has marked where the apex of the drafted pattern is. But first, what we're going to do is we are going to cut off the sleeve. So I'm just going to, you can really be very kind of arbitrary here. I'm just going straight from the side seam all the way up to the shoulder seam, and I'm going to draw a line. Now, one thing that is important is you want to make a notch, because we're going to put these back together at some point. So we've drawn a line just from the side seam all the way up to the shoulder seam, and I'm just going to cut off the sleeve. And set it aside for a bit. Okay. So I'm just going to set this little sleeve piece over to the side for a little minute. Okay, now for the full bust adjustment, I'm just going to, we're working with the apex here, and this is going to look very familiar. I'm just going to make a line all the way from the hem up to the apex. From the apex to somewhere here on the side. I can kind of see where that armhole was, so I'm going to go down here below it. And then this is going to be like your arm's eye, this little area that we've cut off. So I'm just going to go right to that line. Okay. Now, there's no seam allowance here, so it's going to be a little different than our normal full bust adjustment. I'm also going to make a line down here, so that we can, because obviously the center front's going to get longer when we're matching all that up. This will be a good line for that. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to, so I'm going to split this around, so because I'm right-handed. I'm going to cut from the bottom up to the apex. And then I'm going to go from the apex to the armhole. I'm still cutting, but I'm going to leave a little bit of a hinge here. I don't want to cut all the way through that. Just a little bit. And then go back this way. Now I'm going to cut from this side. Up to there. So now we've got 2 hinges here at the arm's eye, our made arm's eye, and then here at the bust point. All right. Determining how much of a full bust adjustment you need to do. I always pick, because I have a full bust, I have larger than a 2-inch difference between my upper bust measurement and my full bust measurement. I'm pretty confident for most patterns that I have to do a full bust adjustment. I have like a 4, sometimes 5-inch difference between my upper bust and my full bust. So the way I decide how much I want to add is I pick my pattern based on my upper bust measurement, because that's going to have the correct fit in the neckline and upper body. And then I look at the finish measurements to determine how much I need to add. So I will look at the pattern finish measurements. A lot of patterns have finish measurements noted down now, so you don't have to like measure the pattern, but that's always an option, to measure the pattern to determine what I want to add. So if, for instance, The bust measurement on the pattern I'm using is 36 inches, and then the finished bust is 40 inches. So they have put 4 inches of ease into this dress from what your bust measurement should be versus your the design ease, basically. So what I would do, because my full bust is 40-ish, which that would obviously be very tight if the finished measurement were also 40. So I would want to add, I want at least 2 inches of ease at the bust. Now, do I need all the design ease that pattern designer has in it? No, but I need at least 2 inches. So let's say that I'm just wanting to add that 2 inches. You need at least 2 inches in a woven pattern, I guess I should say. So what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to, let's say I need to add 2 inches. Again, this pattern has a full bust front, so I actually don't need anything, but we are pretending. All right, so just going to slide that on up there. All right, so I'm going to put tape down just here on this side, just to keep it level. So if I wanted to add 2 inches so that I have my 2 inches of ease, I'm going to move that out of the way. That means I want to add 1 inch on each side. So I'm going to do a 1 inch full bust adjustment that will give me a total of 2 inches, because you're doing it, you know, this is mirrored. You're doing it on both sides. All right, so now I'm just going to swing this side over until it meets that line I just made. Now, even though this pattern did not include a bust dart, you can add a bust dart. And a lot of times if you have a full bust, that's not a bad idea, even sometimes in knit patterns, because it just gives you the shaping that you need in that area. Okay. So we're just going to tape this down like so. All right, so now we've got, obviously we have a jog here. So what I'm going to do real quick is just cut that line that we made earlier. And it's going to get slid down to where it matches the previous line that we made. And I'm going to make a reference line here as well, just so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so now this is going to get moved. And obviously, you're going to fill in with the extra paper. And down here, too, I need a little extra paper down here for the hem, which we can just stick. Kind of do this. Oh, right, just like that. Okay, so again, you can leave this as is, and you've created your bust dart here. So really all you need to do, I like to back my, here, I'll put paper back here just to make it so you can see a little bit easier. Actually, is that gonna give me enough? No. It's always about making your scraps fit. All right. So if you're gonna leave your dart, what I would do at this point is, let me, hold on, I want to make this as clear as possible. I feel like these gaps can get confusing. Okay, cut that off. Okay, so now if you're wanting to keep the dart, what I would do is you want to, this is the apex of the pattern, and you don't want your dart tip to be at the apex because that is going to have the dart ending right on top of the fullest part of your bust, aka your nipple. No one wants that. You want to back it off about an inch. So I'm just going to come back off of this dart just an inch for the end of my dart, and then I'm just going to mark my dart in here. And again, if you've made yourself a muslin or whatever and decided that your dart is too high or too low or whatever, you can move that up or down. I talked about that a little bit last time. And then truing our dart. I haven't forgot about the sleeve, don't worry. We're going to true our dart. So we want the dart bulk to go down. And I just literally just scored the paper with my tracing wheel there, just so it made it easier to cut. So you can either score it to determine what the shape of your dart is going to be, or the dart bulk, or you can just cut. And then it'll give you your little dart there. Okay, so now we have a bust dart. Again, you can raise or lower it from this point. You can omit the dart if you want to do one of those dartless FBAs. But now we are going to add our lovely little sleeve back on. So we've got it here. It's going to match up here at the shoulder and down here. And you want, you know, that reference point that we made, which is right here. You want those to be close. Now look, there's going to be a gap in here. That is absolutely fine. Your body needs that. If you're needing a full bust adjustment, your body is going to need that little extra. So now I'm just going to put some paper under here. Not quite enough, huh? Tape. And then we are just going to tape it down. I'll add a little bit more in there. So as you can see, our little reference points, and this is just because it can get very confusing when you cut that sleeve off, like what's what. You know, if you're putting it on upside down, right side up, what that looks like. We could put just a little bit more here. Okay, and then we can go back and, okay, so I have a little bit of a dip that's here at this shoulder point. You can also true that up as well, which is of course going to require all the paper. Because you do want this to be straight. There we go. So now, and we've not added any length to the shoulder seam because this went back right where it was. It just changed shape a little bit. And then I'm just going to cut that and then cut the sleeve here. And there we have done there we go. There we have done a full bust adjustment on a Dolman sleeve. So it's really not that hard. It's really very easy. Okay, now I want to address if you need a, if you think you need a narrow shoulder adjustment, for instance, which again, like I mentioned, because there's no arm's eye, your shoulder can fall anywhere in this shoulder seam and it should fit just fine. But if your issue is not necessarily your shoulders, but more your upper body and like the neckline is too big, what I would do is I would trace the smaller size that you need for your neckline. Do the armhole the way that you need it to be done. And then I would trace the side seam of the larger side you need. And then just connect my line here at my underarm to the line up at my smaller size. So you'll have probably a diagonal line, but that's fine. So then everything up here would be the smaller size, and then everything down here would be the size you need for the rest of your body. So I hope that makes sense. It's actually very, very easy to grade between sizes that way, especially with a dolman. If you need more room, so like a full bicep adjustment, you could do it one of two ways, or you could do both. You could omit some of the slope of this shoulder. So I would start at the known point of the shoulder here, and then you could add, an inch, which would be 2 inches total, because the front and the back, you would need to do the same thing to the back, so that your shoulder slope matches. But then you would just trace in. So you're adding an inch here at the top of the sleeve, or you could just take this curve that's here and extend this down and just redraw this same curve, but lower, to where you're adding more room here as well. Just keep your curve the same. Just retrace that same curve down a little bit lower. It's very easy. Dolmans, there's not a lot of, because they're just a front and a back that gets slapped together and that's it. So there's not a lot of shaping in an armhole. So it's actually very easy to adjust things as you need them. So that, just adding to the top and the bottom, is going to give you more width in your armhole. And remember, do the same to the back as you do to the front, and give you a wider arm opening there. So, and if you do have a longer sleeve that gets attached to that dolman seam allowance, then you will need to do, then you could do more of a full bust or full bicep adjustment on that lower piece, and just having it start at the top. So you're not cutting into the sleeve cap, for instance. So the whole top of the sleeve is getting spread, because you don't need the shaping there that you would need for a normal sleeve. It just gets fed into this, and just make sure it matches the amount that you've added to the armhole opening. I hope that makes sense. Just to give yourself a little bit more room in the bicep. Let me know if it doesn't make sense. And I could probably do another video, but I think it's a pretty easy thing. So hopefully that helps eliminate any questions that anyone had. But if not, I can do more of a tutorial on how to do that and showing you the actual steps. But there you go. That is a full bust adjustment on a dolman style sleeve. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay,